mad at you, right? They're a representative of a much larger group. On Twitter, you can't tell if the 30 people who say snarky things, especially anonymously to you, you can't tell if they're representative at all. And they're likely not. And you know, that very narrow bandwidth, that 140 or 280 characters, might also be something that really facilitates angry, impulsive responding. And so we don't understand any of this psychologically.
I mean, I think there's something else happening too, and that is that both Twitter and Facebook, all social media, is basically something different in human history in the sense that it's just a crowd without a purpose. So it's a crowd looking for a purpose, meaning that throughout human history, when you actually had to have face-to-face interactions with people, the only reason you would show up in a crowd is because the crowd had a purpose. So where were you typically doing this? Is you were going to a church, right? Everybody was there to worship. Everybody was there with a common goal in mind, right? You were a member of the army, and so there's a common goal in mind. Anytime you were getting together, it was because there was a party, so everybody was there for the party. Twitter is legitimately people waking up and just, I want to interact with other humans. There are no other humans around. And so I'm here, and you're here, and we're all here. And look, somebody just said something. There's a common purpose. Let's jump on that. And then there's this backslapping effect of the person said something, and I mean, we all use Twitter, so we all know that if you are, the most dangerous thing about Twitter, if I could do anything with Twitter, I would get rid of the mentions tab. The reason being because if you are if you are just a human, it encourages bad behavior, especially because it encourages you to be looking and seeing how people are responding to you. Because as human beings, we're constantly looking to see how people are responding to us, and so this is
which is generally a good thing.
Right, it's generally a good thing, except that it's an ego machine.
Yes, so that's the downside.
Because one of the keys to being a good person is to recognize most people aren't thinking about you 95% of the time. Right, you're not that important as a human. And so in order for you to be important, you actually have to do something important. But because Twitter functions in such a way that all you get is that feedback loop, it encourages you more and more to look for more of that feedback. It makes you feel good. I mean, you get a little endorphin rush every time there's a nice comment about you. You're fresh for more nice comments. That doesn't happen in real life. There's never a situation in real life in which that happens. And when it does, it's a major life event. It's a wedding. It's a bar mitzvah. Right? It's something where people are collectively celebrating you. But on Twitter, everybody is collectively celebrating everybody else. And the people who issue the strongest opinions are the people who receive both the most condemnation and the most celebration.
So in a weird way, not that we want people to go into their bubbles, but are these town squares they're almost too big to actually ever function properly? So every week there's another story where Jack says, I'm going to get rid of the likes, or I'm going to get rid of follower counts. And they're always trying to float these ideas to manipulate how we all behave with each other. But in an odd way, having everyone from everywhere on these platforms really doesn't make sense in some bizarre way. I'm not saying that we should be in separate platforms.
Well, there's no community.
Yeah, because
which is Ben's point.
Right, so it's like we need something that has community, I think, but then the danger is that we end up in our little echo chambers.
Right, I mean, the need, it's fascinating because if you look, is a little bit different. The way that it works, or it used to work 10 years ago when people actually visited websites directly, was that you'd have something like at National Review The Corner, and it was a bunch of people, you know, like us, sitting around and discussing ideas back and forth, like a group blog. And it was restricted to the people who were discussing the ideas. And then below that...
Or a video game board or anything else.
Exactly. And then below that, you'd have the comment section, which was all about those particular conversations. Because Twitter is fragmented, there's no actual conversation taking place on Twitter. There's me saying something and you responding to it, and me not responding to you mostly, and then me tweeting another thought, and then you responding to it. And the idea of having a long-form conversation, every time it happens on Twitter, at the end of the conversation, you find someone saying, this isn't the appropriate place to have a long-form conversation. If we were going to do that, we'd be on a podcast, we'd be on, we'd be writing each other letters. Like this isn't the way to do that. And even when I'm discussing with my peers, even when I'm talking with people on the left who I talk with on the phone, instead of having a conversation on Twitter about the topic, I will pick up the phone and call them and have the conversation, because you can't have a good conversation on Twitter. You just can't.
How much of this is connected to one of the things that you've brought up in many of the lectures, which is that we're just getting information so much faster right now? We can not only just open up our phone and have basically the world right there, but we can listen to podcasts in double speed, which if you listen to Shapiro in double speed,
you go back in time, actually.
But